and writer who studied at Columbia College Chicago and one of many former students of Miss Tina's fantasy writing workshop. They currently work as a bookseller at an independent bookstore and lead a horror book club called Blood and Guts that focuses on dark, transgressive literature written by marginalized voices. They enjoy writing absurd fan fiction and attending local rock shows in their spare time. Their serialized angsty Kraken adventures were a huge hit here at Gumbo Fiction Salon, and they are graciously reprising an episode of that tonight because I needed to hear it one last time before it gets published. Please welcome Zach Caudill.
Hello, everyone. It's been an entire gender ago. So, we're just gonna start from the beginning, for old time's sake. Dear Diary, today was shittier than usual. Mom wouldn't let me get bigger gauges for my siphon, so I went out on a rampage. I destroyed 3 different ships and emotionally ate 45 Vikings. Mom threw a huge fit when she found out. No thanks to that snitch Baltic. I'm gonna find him and beat him up tomorrow for that. So now I'm grounded for a whole week. What makes it worse was that I was supposed to hang out with Nessie and Levi this weekend. I was finally gonna ask Nessie out. I have been preparing for this moment for 2 years. And now frickin' Aeolus is gonna ask her out. I freaking hate that guy so much. He thinks he's so special just because his dad happens to be beside him, the mayor of this stupid town. Joke's on him because his dad's a swimming piece of crap. Mom's yelling at me now to go to bed now. So I guess I have to stop here. Dear Diary, today was boring. Nothing ever happens in the suburbs of Bryan City. Ugh, I wish I didn't live in this stupid town. Everyone here is a fucking normie and has the worst taste in music. I can't wait until Levi and I get our band together and leave this hellhole forever. I still have to learn how to play bass though. You would think it would be easy having 8 arms, but no, it makes everything so much more complicated. I've even tried playing piano, but again, my stupid tentacles keep on getting in the way. I can't even play chopsticks. I've come to accept that my tentacles are made for murder and destruction, not for playing music. Maybe I should practice my screaming instead. Yeah, I should totally do that. I'm gonna be the best screamo lead ever. Dear Diary, I failed my algebra test, but I told my mom that I got a B instead. What she doesn't know won't hurt her, right? But I got to talk to Nessie today. She's so freaking cool. We like the same music. Fairy punk rock is the only way to go. And she has this adorable accent and big green eyes and shiny white fangs. I could go on forever about how perfect she is. But I found out that her favorite band is Another Fucking Changeling Story, and that's my favorite band too. Her favorite song by them is Better Than Billy, which is an okay song in my opinion, but I'm just glad she didn't say I'll strangle the child myself. Because that's the most boring favorite song to have. Not that it's a bad song or anything, it's just so overplayed. I wish they would do an ocean tour so we could see them together, but no. They're always touring around the Sealy and Unsealy courts. Why must life be so unfair? On a semi-related note, I think I may be in love with Nessie. I haven't felt so nervous and wonderful around another person before. I took a couple online quizzes to see if I was actually in love, because everything on the internet is always accurate. And all the results say that I'm completely smitten. I've been super into her since the first moment I saw her 2 years ago. She was a new girl back then, and I still remember exactly what she was wearing. A Silver Bullets t-shirt and several studded leather chokers clasped around her long, slender neck. Her eyes had sparkled like precious gemstones. She was stunning. I hope I can convince Mom to unground me early, so I can ask her out before frickin' Aeolus. Aeolus has been my arch nemesis since the first grade, when he spread a nasty rumor about me, saying that I apparently had a secret shrine to Big Mouth Billy Bass, which was not true. My stupid grandpa gave it to me for my birthday. It was quite a traumatic experience, and thus spawned an everlasting hatred between us. I've come to hate him even more as of late because he has been showing an interest in Nessie. I think he knows that I like her because he always gives me that awful knowing smirk whenever we pass each other in the hall. If jail wasn't an immediate consequence, I would wrap my tentacles around his skinny neck and rip his stupid head off from his stupid shoulders. Nessie might find it to be metal as fuck and marry me on the spot if she was there to witness the destruction of my mortal enemy. Girls like tough guys, right? Dear Diary, I had to help Grandpa Cthulhu clean out his attic after school today. It was so boring. All he did was go on and on about how many ships he sank back in the day and lecture me about how I should respect my elders. He also made me wax his gross leathery wings and pull barnacles off his back. I feel like I need to boil my entire being in holy water to cleanse myself of that horrifying experience. I hate Grandpa Cthulhu. He smells like decaying seaweed and moldy bread on top of that delightful, musty old people smell. I wouldn't mind that scent as much if it meant that he was slowly dying from the inside out. But unfortunately, my grandfather's an immortal god of chaos, so I'm never going to be free of his constant complaints about how my generation is lazy and entitled. He also loves to listen to brownie bluegrass and creepy chanting hymns from millions of years ago. Grandpa Cthulhu is the perfect mixture of embarrassing and creepy. In other news, I'm going to be ungrounded before the weekend just for spending time with Grandpa. That means I can ask Nessie out. I'm so nervous. I feel like I'm going to ink everywhere every time I think about it. What if she says no? What if she says yes? I've never had a girlfriend before. How do relationships even work? Maybe I shouldn't have asked her out. Maybe I'm better off dying alone. There's less pain that way, I guess. I don't know. I'll decide eventually when the weekend comes.
I do want to say a note about the biographies I read. They were provided mostly by the authors. So any self-deprecating comments or digs were written by the authors. I have added some comments, all of which are nice. A number of them may mention the Ludlow Charlington's Doghouse Anthology. That is a book I edited to benefit Friends of Chicago Animal Care and Control to help save the doggos. Lots of folks here are contributors. You'll be hearing not the pieces from that book, but they are here, and my thanks to all of them. And hey, it's still available as an ebook, and yes, in the coming months, I will finally finish that new edit, and I don't promise not in time for Christmas, but there will be a physical copy available sometime next year. So thank you for your patience on that, folks. And thank you to the authors who donated the stories. All right, next up, we have the first play of the evening. As John Weagly and Brian Pastor come to the stage. Has had over 100 plays receive productions in theaters on 5 continents, folks. Some of his short plays have been collected in The Juggler Who Lost His Arms in the Rodeo Fire, Vagabond Plays, and Tiny Flights of Fantasy, which I used as a textbook for one of the courses I taught at Columbia College. You can find some of his short fiction in the collections The Undertow of Small Town Dreams, which I was honored to publish in the Twilight Tales days, and also in the collection Dancing in the Knee-Deep Midnight. Brian Pastor is an award-winning writer, director, actor, and producer whose short plays have been performed on 3 continents. Their play Capacity for Curiosity won Best of Festival at the 2018 Art Adaptation Festival, And Chicago City Lit Theater commissioned their critically acclaimed adaptation of RFK's memoir of the Cuban Missile Crisis, 13 Days. Brian's short fiction has been featured in the Gateways podcast series, the Speculative Literature Foundation's Deep Dish series, at Punk Noir magazine, and in the 42 Stories anthology. Brian's first delightful collection of short fiction, The Uncanny Adventures of Monkey McGee, was published in 2023. A frequent collaborator and cohort of John Weagly's, I've had the pleasure of hearing his work, hearing him perform John's work, and even appearing in a stage reading of a Weagly play with him. Please welcome John and Brian.
Hey, I'm not as tall as you.
That's all right.
So we have two plays tonight. Tina asked me to read a couple of my New Orleans plays for some reason. I don't know why. So we have a couple of very short ones. This first one, now back in 2015, 10 years ago now, Tina was in New Orleans, of all places, and posted a photo on Facebook of a drink with a tiny toy alligator in it. I loved the picture and I decided to write a short play about it. This led to other short plays that took place in the same Bayou Roadhouse, and several of them have gone on to have readings and productions around the country. So this first play is called Alligator Whiskey at the Neon Cypress. Lights up. The Neon Cypress, a roadhouse down by the swamps. There are a couple of signs advertising Avita beer and Old Crow whiskey. Cajun music plays on the jukebox. Juvenile tends bar and looks like he's been tending bar there for several decades. Brian enters and sits down.
Sazerac, if you please.
Juvenile nods and makes Brian the drink.
It's the last part of my trip. I walked around the French Quarter, I listened to some blues music on Bourbon Street, visited the Cypress Grove and both gates of prayer cemeteries, and I have had a cafe au lait and beignets at Café du Monde. The last thing on my vacation checklist was to have a drink at a Bayou Roadhouse.
Juvenile serves Brian their drink. It's in a mason jar, and floating on the top of the alcohol is a tiny alligator. $3.
What is that?
Rye whiskey, bitters, more bitters, absinthe, a little bit of sugar, twist of lemon, and a couple drops of water, a Sazerac.
No, not that.
A lot of people think a fancy drink ought to come in a fancy glass. It tastes just as sweet in a mason jar.
I don't mind the glass at all. The problem is...
The price is too high? Where are you going to get a drink like that for less than $3? Nowhere, that's where.
There is a tiny alligator in it.
Alligators, we've been having a problem with them things.
You've been having a problem with alligators.
We got us an infestation.
Really? Alligators?
Brian examines the drink and the alligator.
This one's so small.
Oh, him just a baby.
Well, do they mean something? Ominous?
Ominous? Like what?
I don't know, alligators in the whiskey, it's maybe a sign of the end of the world, like frogs falling from the sky or locusts eating farms. Is it a protest by an animal rights group releasing thousands of tiny alligators into taverns around the world to educate the masses about the reptile's plight? Maybe it's some kind of voodoo mafia warning? The night you sleep with the fishes and the gators?
Oh, those explanations make good sense. An alligator can mean a lot of things. Old Mr. Gator can be a symbol of strength, or speed, or stealth. He can be a representation of instinct, or cunning, or bravery. He can be a token of honor, or resilience, or of magic. An alligator can mean a lot of them things.
Okay, then what do you think that this tiny alligator means?
It means this Bayou Roadhouse had a problem with mice.
Mice?
A little while back we had mice all over this bar. We brought in alligators. They ate all the mice. Some of the gators were boys and some of the gators were girls. And while they were in here, they fell in love and laid some eggs. Now we got lots of tiny baby alligators running around, but at least we got no mice.
So there's Nothing magical about my drink, nothing mystical or apocalyptic.
Nope, just a rodent predicament that turned into an alligator conundrum.
Well, can I get another Sazerac, please?
What's wrong with that one?
Well, there's an alligator in it.
That drink is fine. Just take the alligator and put him on the floor.
I don't know.
It's okay, that little fellow won't bite. Brian tries to take the alligator out of the drink. Alligator bites him.
Ow!
Well, sometimes I tell lies. Lights down. Now, can we get a couple of volunteers to come up here and meow like cats? Yeah, come on. Well, they're on their way up here. This is the story of this one. Brian and I were at work back in 2017, sitting in a theater, and we were talking about what sells tickets to plays. And Brian, in their infinite wisdom, said, star power. They said, you know, if John Mahoney is on, I don't know, Gumbo Joe in his smoky tent, then people are going to buy tickets to see it. So that night, I wrote Gumbo Joe in his smoky tent. Just like the Neon Cypress Roadhouse, Gumbo Joe has gone on to appear in several more plays that have had a variety of readings, including this one. This one is called Gumbo Joe and the Bayou Iditarod. And you guys can start meowing whenever you're ready. Quietly. Lights up. The swamp. Gumbo Joe stands next to a sled. 10 cats mill around him on 10 leashes, meowing and bathing and acting like cats. John enters carrying a clipboard and approaches Gumbo Joe. Are you here for the race?
That I am, sir, that I am. The Bayou Iditarod, the mostest majesticest race in the 13 counties, gonna win it too. Gumbo Joe knows these waterways and strips of land like he knows his own heart. From Manchac to the Maurepas and from Barataria to Honey Island.
Great, I'll get you checked in. What's your name?
Gumbo Joe, that's my name. You've heard of me, sure you have. I'm Gumbo Joe.
Gumbo Joe, got it. And you've signed our waiver?
Waiver? What's that?
That states that you won't hold Fado events responsible for any injuries or deaths that may occur on the trail. These may include attack by alligator, attack by snake, attack by giant snapping turtle.
Yeah, one time one of them snapping monsters took 3 of Joe's toes, but Joe got them back.
Attack by wild boar, attack by whooping crane, attack by swamp sparrow, attack by roseate spoonbill.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, them attacks ain't your fault.
Attack by enraged nutria, attacked by rabbit muskrat, attacked by...
Okay. Joe signed the waiver when he signed up. None of them things gonna catch you any blame.
Got it. Now I just need you to check your dogs, and then we can proceed to the starting line.
No dogs. Cats.
Excuse me?
Hey, Gumbo Joe's sled team ain't no dogs. It's cats. 10 of the most moonstruck mad mouses you'll see this side of Bourbon Street.
But this is a dog race.
No, it ain't. This is a sled race. Nothing in them rules says nothing about what's got to be pulling them sleds.
I'm sorry, we've only ever allowed dog teams in the race.
Well, these cats are special can be. They're as strong and smart as any dog. Yeah, see, they've been raised on Gumbo. Gumbo Joe Gumbo. Gives them super special powers. They got the okra that make their brain burn with aptitude. The cayenne make their blood hop and spit. And that sure is spicy, smoky, dokey sausage making so the tiny paws just fly above the surface of the earth. These is some special cats they is.
This is highly irregular.
Now, why be regular when you can be the one and only?
You must really want that jambalaya.
Now, whoa. What's that now?
Jambalaya. First prize is a year's supply of Boori jambalaya, the finest jambalaya to come in a can.
Jambalaya? Canned jambalaya? Some dumb damn Chef Boyardee supermarket catastrophe?
Chef Boori.
You trying to got the grease on my Gumbo Joe?
No gris intended.
Jambalaya? Gumbo Joe's a gumbo man, not some jambalaya ignoramus.
But our jambalaya has monosodium glutamate to ensure freshness and flavor.
Mono, who's a what's it? You all got the freshness and flavor of duckweed boiled in a bog sledge. Now, consider Jumbo Joe out of the race.
So you won't be competing?
Not for no monosodium glutamate jambalaya will not be.
So be it.
Hey, all right, pussycats, no racing today. Let's get you home and put you in the pot.
You're going to cook those cats?
Cook the cats? You just fall off a cypress stump? Gumbo Joe ain't cooking no cats. The pot is what Gumbo Joe calls his abode, his habitat, his domicile.
I see. The pot is the name for your home.
That's what I just said. Now cook the cats. How absurd. I ain't filleting no felines.
Thank goodness.
Canned jambalaya. It's like Gumbo Joe always said. If somebody say to you, Gumbo stinks next to jambalaya, you stick a fork in their left eye and tell them they a damn liar.
The lights down.
Next up is my buddy John O'Neill. John runs the Blackgate website. Blackgate used to be an anthology-sized quarterly magazine that focused on sword and sorcery, but also featured other subgenres of fantasy. I was honored to have a story published in one of the issues. Blackgate is now an active website that covers all the news, reviews, and thoughts on the spec-lit field. And they're always looking for additional bloggers and contributors. See John. John also writes fiction under the name Todd McNulty.
Either both, really.
His glorious first novel, a fast-paced doorstop of a book called The Robots of Gotham, is set in a futuristic Chicago after the Robot Rebellion. It was published in 2018 and is available in multiple formats, including a delightful audiobook. He knows everything and everyone and brings an enthusiasm and energy to the field that is virtually unrivaled. Please welcome John.
Wow, thank you, Tina. I'd like it known for the record that when Tina asked me for a bio, I sent her 2 sentences. The rest of that was, I think it says like John O'Neill's from Nova Scotia. The rest of it is all Tina. Thank you very much, especially for the lies. That was fabulous. I have a very short reading tonight, but I do want to use whatever extra time I have to give a shout out to Tina Jens and especially to Gumbo Fiction Salon. It is a wonder and a joy to see so many faces out there, so many smiling faces, so many readers. And if you wanna get an appreciation for just how lively the Chicago genre scene is, step number 1, get to know Tina Jens, and step number 2, come to Gumbo Fiction. Tina, we're gonna miss you, and it's for a lot of reasons. Most of them extremely selfish. Gumbo Fiction and Tina Jens has been a luckstone for me for over a decade. In 2017, I came here 8 years ago, and I stood right over there, and I read a chapter from this gargantuanly, obscenely large, 250,000 word novel, an unsellable novel, but every agent I showed it to told me it was unsellable, as a matter of fact. And after I read it at Gumbo Fiction, 11 days later, I had an offer from Helping This Week to publish the book. So, I knew a good thing when I saw it, and I came back to Gumbo Fiction again to read another chapter from it, and 4 days later I got an offer from Warner Brothers, who were interested in the rights. So I did not come back to Gumbo Fiction for 3 years, and during that 3 years I never published a goddamn thing. So Gumbo Fiction and Tina Jens and your future, it all happens right here. So let's have a round of applause for Tina. I'm going to read 3 pages, the last 3 pages of my current novel that I wrote on Wednesday. At the end of 2017, after this run of incredible luck, all Tina Jen's fueled, I would like to point out. A lot of interest came in for that book from a bunch of different production companies, most of which I'd never heard of. And one of the heartbreaking things, anybody who's been involved, anybody who's published a novel, had any kind of interest in it, is these offers that will come in, virtually none of them go anywhere. And so by December, I was awfully sick and tired of getting these letters and things. And on December 13th of 2018, I got a call from a guy who said he was calling from Europe. He said his name was Tim Miller. He said, he read my book, he loved my book. He said he had a small production company, and I said, yeah, thank you very much. I'm really not interested. Thank you so much for the interest. Well, 4 days later, I went online and looked up Tim Miller. He's a guy who directed a film called Deadpool. And the production company he ran, Blur Studio, was a 200-person Netflix production company. And I remember I'll go to my grave knowing my next few words because they were, oh shit. I probably should not have hung up on that guy. So one of the wonderful things about this business, of course, is that it gives you, especially the entertainment business, it gives you countless opportunities to humiliate yourself. So I did eventually end up going to work for Tim. I have done a bunch of different projects for him. I worked on a Star Wars project. I did a Tarzan pitch for him. I'm a writer on the 2nd season of a show called Secret Level. Some of you may be familiar with that. I've done a lot of work for his Death and Robots scene, which just got renewed for the 5th season. In August of last year, Tim called me and said, hey, I need you to write a movie for me. So I wrote a movie called Alien Legion. It was greenlit in April of this year by Mike DeLuca, the head of Warner Brothers. So my first film will be produced. It's a $180 million production. So that is, and again, Gumbo Fiction is the key to it all. What I'm going to read you now is, as I said, it is the last 3 pages of a novel I finished on Wednesday. You don't even know anything about it. The story is it's a possession novel. I call it Veronica Mars meets The Exorcist. It's a possession story where the protagonist is the demon who's possessing the emperor. My narrator is a guy named Rich. You don't need to know anything about him except that he's way out of his depth. He was supposed to be one of the exorcists called to the island. Needless to say, the exorcism goes very wrong. He's one of the few survivors, and in the course of the novel, he has become indebted to a creature whom he only knows as Sulani Fasa. He thinks it's a giant rat. He actually takes the form of an opossum. He doesn't know the difference. So we're going to start, and these are the last 3 pages of the novel called Nightcraft. And Tina, I forgot to tell you this, I have had 2 producers ask about the rights for the novel. It hasn't even been finished. It was finished on Wednesday. So again, one more shout out to Tina Jen. What happens when you come to the Father Cote and I had dinner at a small restaurant in Albany a week later. He told me he'd retired from the priesthood and joined a quiet monastic order. Oh, shit, I said, that sounds boring. He nodded, oui, boring exactement as I want. It was good to see him like this. Good just to hear him talk. I realized as we sat together that he seemed to have found peace. I mean, real peace, unlike me. He wasn't troubled by nightmares. He laughed easily. He talked about what had happened to him, but he didn't obsess over it. I don't know how you do it, Father, I said. You suffered more than any of the rest of us, except maybe Amy. If I'd been medically dead for 30 fucking minutes, I don't know if I'd be able to recover. If I could find peace as easily as you have. He laughed. No. Do not be fooled, St. James. I'm not a man at peace. It looks that way to me. No, I'm a man who was haunted by what he had seen and by what he knows to be true. Father, do you remember anything? Afterwards, you mean after JP put 3 bullets into my body? He tapped his chest. Yeah, after that. I do. I recall everything. After I was shot, Mr. Giovanna hid my spirit in Gehenna. You can't be serious. In Gehenna, like in hell, in your garden? Shit, that sounds terrifying. Yes, said Father Cote evenly. While I was there, I was not mistreated. I wandered freely and spoke with some of the guests in her garden. I saw things I cannot forget. I had no idea what to say except, yeah, I imagine you did. My days, Richard, my days as an arbiter are over. My soul was in Giovanna's care for a very short time. It was necessary, but the experience has taught me that life is precious. I cannot send anyone to her garden ever again, no matter how vile their life has been. Do you understand? Yeah, I think so. God has given me the gift of my remaining years. It is a gift that was meant to be celebrated. I will spend the remainder of my life using my days as they were intended in celebration. That sounds epic, Father. Father Cote's idea of celebration, by the way, involved a lot of wine. It took a day or two for me to recover. I also insisted on paying for dinner that night, and my bank account never recovered. Father Cote definitely had the right idea about celebrating life, but even modest celebrations need money, and I was rapidly running out. Things changed for me after that. I won't say they changed for the better. It started when I came home with a bag of groceries from the Chicago food pantry. There was a note on my apartment door. I took it down with apprehension, expecting an eviction notice. It wasn't a notice. It was a brief note from Carson apologizing for not getting in touch. That's all it said. Just sorry for not getting in touch. But 2 hours later, when I checked my threadbare bank account, I found a $250,000 deposit from Bertoldo Global. After my initial disbelief and subsequent elation, I came back down to earth. Carson never did anything for free. I paid my bills, I straightened up my apartment, and waited for the other shoe to drop. 6 days later, I found another note taped to my door. I won't bore you with the details. I've been an arbiter 2 more times. The pay is crap, but at least it's never boring. I miss Father Cote's steady hand. I've only had to draw the obsidian blade once. I keep it sheathed in a lockbox in my apartment in these days. I rarely see visions of Amy standing in the dark in my apartment. Finally, one evening in mid-November, a raccoon climbed onto my balcony and left 6 acorns in a perfect flower pattern. Now, as signs go, I suppose it left a lot to be desired, but I got the message. The next night, I stood out on my balcony, dressed for travel. A black squirrel leaped up onto the railing from a nearby hickory tree, and he chittered at me. I wasn't expecting a squirrel. Are you my guy? It screeched at me. I sighed and cinched up my jacket. I'll meet you downstairs. I followed that damn rodent for 4 miles across soaked fields and county roads and through countless backyards. An old guy in a windbreaker shouted at me when I popped up out of a hedge and startled him. I hurried after the squirrel, apologizing over my shoulder. In the end, my furry guide brought me to a dimly lit parking lot just off the 287. My pants were ripped and my sneakers were soaked through. I stared in dismay at a Shell station barely 100 yards away. I shouted at the squirrel, "We could have taken a fucking Uber." The squirrel led me down a very dark culvert, nearly hidden by an overgrown viburnum. It ran under a frontage road on the far side of the lot. The squirrel climbed over the overhang and chattered at me. Seriously? The entrance was barely 4 feet wide. I hunkered down, feeling mud squish under my knees, and shone the light from my phone inside. It's too dim to see the other side. I put away my phone and started crawling on all fours like a crab. The squirrel just watched overhead. "You're not coming?" I said just before I slid inside. My guide screeched one last time and then vanished into the bushes. Fantastic. I eventually emerged in an overgrown maze of shrubbery. When I battled my way out, I found myself on the side of a hill. There was no parking lot, no lights, and no Highway 287. The nearest sign of civilization was a dark ribbon of freeway that cut through the hills off in the distance. Solani Fassa was waiting for me. She sat on the top of a rock. "St. James," she said. "Solani," I said, trying to brush cold mud off my pants. It was hopeless. "Hope I didn't keep you waiting?" She shook her head. "So, what are we doing tonight?" I asked. "Dark deeds," she said. "Are you prepared?" Fuck no. Let's just get this over with. Solani's task took me deep into the woods of western New York on that merciless night. It involved a centuries-old promise, a buried family secret, and the very talkative ghost of a child who died of exposure while lost in a snowstorm in 1904. What the two of us did that night was violent, bloody, and awful. It ended with Solani Fasa weary, but satisfied. Just don't expect me to ever talk about it.
Lauren A.R. Masterson, also known as Alice Little, will be next. She likes to quote, "Start at the beginning, and when you come to the end, stop." The Mad Hatter from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Lauren, known socially as Alice Little or Little Alice, is a talented author and artist who writes a wide variety of genres: fantasy, historical fiction, horror, and poetry. One of my star former students, she started writing her novel, The Love of the Sea, while taking one of my classes. She has published over 30 titles. Her latest novel, Succumb to Darkness, is a delightful romantic vampire novel set during the French Revolution. She brings a unique spin to her brand with her work as a professional cosplayer and gamer, and can be found on multiple streaming services. You should subscribe. When she's not touring the convention and book show circuits where her cosplay outfits have a fan base all their own. I want to give her a big public thanks for doing the design and social media work for tonight's event. Huzzah! And she's a professional social media manager and has room on her roster for clients. So if you need someone, I highly recommend her. Please welcome Lauren A.R. Masterson.
Alrighty, to keep myself honest and fair, I'm gonna put a little timer on my phone, because otherwise, time has no concept for me. So as Tina said, hello everybody. You may call me Lauren, you may call me Alice. I don't really care, whichever is fine. I was a student in Tina's classes, and then Columbia got to the point where they didn't know what to do with me, so Tina said, you can just hang out here, and so I did, and scared the rest of her poor students. And she always told them, don't worry about what she's doing, she's crazy, it's fine. And speaking of the crazy, that is what I have in store for y'all tonight. This is one of my crown jewel projects, Oni Whispers in the Snuff Box. It is one of the magical projects from my modeling days when me and a crew of 30 photographers, models, designers, and makeup artists, and poor souls that we forced to schlep our shit for us, went to West Virginia to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum and made this wonderful dive into insanity. Here we go. Deidre no longer remembered the day she had been left to die in these endless halls. No longer knew what her husband's face looked like, or that she even had a husband. The doors had shut behind her, leaving her dead to the outside world. We're gonna do it library style. Ooh, picture. Ooh. More pictures. Ooh. Spooky pictures. Who doesn't like spooky pictures? Come, little children, I'll take thee away into a land of enchantment. Come, little children, the time's come to play here in my garden of shadows. Quietly, so quietly. Slip forth into the night, and pray the sun will rise again this morn. Every night it would come. Deidre would hide her shaking body in crevices, waiting and waiting. Always it would come, and always it would find her. Follow, sweet children, I'll show thee the way, through all the pain and the sorrows. Weep not, poor children, for life is this way, murdering beauty and passions. Each night you beckon and come forth. Taunt me no more, fell demon! Tease me no more with your promises and untruths. Every night the sirens would scream. Another had escaped, only to be dragged back again. These attempts were always met with more torture, more restraint. No one ever got away. Death was the only way out. And even then, they would keep pieces of you in jars. Even your soul could not be free. And yes, we did go in the room that had jars full of brains and livers and eyeballs and other delightful things. It was rather awful. I cannot follow you. This soul is mine to keep. Someday I will draw breath no more, and my bones will lay down to sleep. Hush now, dear children. It must be this way. Too weary of life and deceptions. Rest now, my children, for soon will the way into the calm and the quiet. The memories came back to Deidre in the darkness. Smiling faces of her children would shine through the haze, while the pills shoved down her throat did little to make her forget. Once the night came, she could remember again. Her heart would race and her mind would blaze with that she could never have, a life long since dead and buried without her. Their names were long forgotten, the smell of their hair and the sound of their voices, faint scraps in her mind, pregnant only with despair and darkness. These creatures visit our chambers and hide in the cracks of doorways, the souls of lost children and visitors from hell. This garden of undead is their feeding ground. Humans too weak and shattered to fight back, to shut them out. They will take every night until there is nothing left but flesh and bone, an empty shell full of pills and silence. My child, brush away these thoughts of light and morning sun, for they are never coming. I am here now and will hold you tight. Follow me down this twisted path, for it is the one you desire most. Fear not, I am here and will bring you the peace you so crave. These nights are long and only get longer. Each night I find myself doubting that the sun will ever rise. I doubt the light will come and free me from this beast, only to find myself bound by the bars on my window and the pills that restrain my mind. I am never truly free, never will be. Come, little children, I'll take thee away into a land of enchantment. Come, little children, the time's come to play here in my garden of shadows. Listen well, my dear child, for the witching hour is here. Follow me, sweet little thing. I'll take you and leave your mind clean. Don't scream now, my dear, for there is no one who could possibly hear. Waste not that lovely, sweet voice, for now you must make your choice. The darkness always stretched on like this, the whispers and strange noises stealing away the chance to sleep. Deidre tried to ignore the foul creature. She could feel his warm breath on her hair and his hands hovering above her skin. It was real, so real. The doctors told her she was lying and to take more pills, but every night the demon would come and make his presence known. Each meeting left a blotch on her soul, tainting her further. She was sure one day she would become one of them and wander the halls in between the worlds of the living and the dead. Goose flesh ran down Deidre's limbs, the air cold and heavy. Always his long white fingers extended toward her trembling body. Never did they touch her, just hover so that her skin could feel the tension between them. He would taunt her so, making her question if he was even real. But she knew he was real. She knew it from the pain in her heart and the tattered remains of her blackened soul. He was real! Even daylight was not safe. So often Deidre would catch glimpses of him in her bathroom mirror or a flicker across the hall. Nowhere was safe. The blue pills are for the night terrors. The green pills are to help me forget. The red pills are to help me sleep. But I never take them, lest he find me weak. The night will fall, the roses wither, the shadows grow tall, my hands quiver. The hands that beckon tie the noose, make the blood quicken. Maybe I like the abuse. Come now, sweet child, raise your voice up. Tell us your fears, your broken dreams. Tell us the things that make your heart sing. Each night, Deidre would scream. The nurses had learned to ignore her, for there was nothing that could calm her. An insane person afraid of the dark. Compared to the other usual delusions, it seemed silly and quaint. Poor Deidre. No one understood the dreadful girl's fate. Only the morning rays of sun were able to quiet her, but not everything is what it seems. And I will wrap it up with the line. There we go. Click, click, click. The hollows of her skull rattled, the metal painful and cold. All better now. Christened with blood, newly baptized, for Deidre had been lobotomized.
All right, we're gonna do one more reader before we do a tight intermission. We have a lot of great acts still coming up, so don't go away. But first, to quite possibly disturb you into buying more drinks, Martin Munt writes uncompromising nonsense. His words. He is unflinching in his examination of the surface of character. He is undoubtedly an undisputed underachiever. He has an unsettling fondness for words that begin with un. This week his favorite word is onion. That's the bio he gave me. I have had the privilege of publishing his first short story collection in a chapbook form and then an expanded edition called The Crawling Avatar. It was by far Twilight Tale's greatest seller. The next 2, 3, and 4 combined barely equal the sales of what we did with that book. You can also find his funny, twisted horror in the dark underbelly of Hymns, Candy in the Dumpster, Synchronized Sleepwalking, and a full-length novel, Reanimated Americans. He was one of the first friends I made when I moved to Chicago 36 years ago, and I've had the pleasure of workshopping with him for most of those years. Please welcome Martin Munt.
Thank you, Tina. And Barry, wherever Barry is. I think this room is a little bit young for this story. I reached way back for this one. Tina wasn't instrumental in publishing my first story. That was before I knew her, but she was instrumental in publishing the first story I published in the 90s. And she was instrumental in publishing the first chapbook I published also in the 90s. That's how far back we go. So I wrote a new story, which is the first story I've written in years. So we're going to find out if this is any good. I also can no longer see. Oh, there we go. This story is called What Would Jaja Do? Scott was of two minds. He stood in the middle of the Greyhound station and he couldn't decide whether to get right on the next bus back home or walk out the doors into San Francisco. He listened to the Muzak play a sad, dispirited tune over the station's speakers, and it seemed to call him home to everything the first 15 years of his life had taught him, urging him to go and buy a ticket right back to where he'd come from. But he was of two minds. There was the mind that told him he was a 15-year-old boy running away from home, and there was the other mind inside that mind that told him, against all the visible evidence, that he was really a 15-year-old girl trying to run away from the 15-year-old boy. The station's glass front doors glowed in the bright noontime sunlight. He hiked up his backpack and walked out the doors right past the ticket counters. 1970 was going to be his year. The inside of the bar swirled like no room Scott could remember, or maybe his brain swirled, he couldn't quite tell. The stage was lit like a kaleidoscopic sunset, A haze of cigarette smoke hovered along the ceiling, thicker than in the VFW bar back home, the one he'd had to drag his dad, and sometimes his mom, out of more than once. The place was called the Feather Boa, a drag club. He'd read about it in the free newspaper back home. The paper he wasn't supposed to read, the one where the ink rubbed off on his fingers. His waitress came with his drink, a Coca-Cola. First time at the Boa, she said. She had a deep, almost trained voice. She set a coaster on the round table and a Coke on top of that. Yeah, he said. He stared at her hand, deep red nails and big plastic rings on her fingers. I thought so. Welcome, she smiled, and then she curtsied. She was tall, taller than Scott, probably even without her 5-inch heels. Her costume amounted to nothing but red feather boas wound around her body. The feathers floated and flounced with her movements. Thanks, he said. He fumbled for his wallet, hypnotized by her costume. She waved him off. First one's on me, sweetie. Just remember to leave a nice tip. I tell you to enjoy the show, but I think you will anyways. She turned and left, boas whirling, and he could have sworn he saw parts of her he wasn't supposed to see, but he couldn't be sure. When she was gone, a red feather remained on the table. He remembered why he'd come here. He could hardly wait to see his first boy dressed as a girl. And then the room went as dark as closed eyes, and after a moment, one narrow white spotlight, like a door left ajar into a bright room, snapped on stage. The spot illuminated an upturned face. Not a beautiful face, but pretty. Older, a little pudgy, a little worn, a little like the lady that Scott knew who worked at the supermarket back home. Except this face had big, round, blue eyes, with lashes as heavy with mascara as 2 nests of black spiders. I'm Mitzi Misdeed, she said, in a voice that had once been a gravel road, but that jeeps and tanks had worn down over the years. And I'm your mistress of ceremonies. The whole stage lit up. Mitzi was coiffed in a Grand Ole Opry, platinum blonde Palace of Versailles hairdo, and she wore a red and gold satin kimono that slipped and slid over her 250 pounds as if it were chasing the jiggle of her unrestrained figure around like the Keystone Cops. The show began. Scott's brain stopped. The lights flashed and strobed and spun, the music thumped. The ladies of the Feather Boa sang, one after another, in pairs and in groups, their songs sliding past like a radio dial set to a station he wasn't allowed to listen to back home. His mind did things to him, exciting things, unheard of things, religiously forbidden things. The ladies danced and circled through the crowd from table to table. The vibrato in their voices made the cigarette smoke shiver and shake along the ceiling. The dancing pulsed through the floor. Scott almost started tapping his foot. His mind did tempting things. His mind did mind-expanding things, not done in a million years back home things. The ladies of the Boa wore feathers and glitter and jewels and sequins and spandex and beads and rhinestones and 35 ladies worth of makeup on only 7 ladies. And one even wore strings of little lights like the kind on Christmas trees, blinking on and off, and he didn't know how she did that, but he didn't know how any of them danced in platform heels as tall as his family Bible was thick, or even how they got up on stage in front of a crowd of people dressed like a lot of the women in Star Trek. Like they were hardly dressed at all. Scott wasn't allowed to watch Star Trek back home anymore. His mind couldn't accept that all these ladies were really boys, or even that any of them were. He spent the whole show in his dark corner at his dark table, watching beautiful performers thinking, she has to be a girl, over and over again, but he both believed it and didn't. He did enjoy the lady who played Mississippi Queen on the accordion, though. She was very talented. He'd never seen an accordion player perform on a unicycle before. Afterwards, Scott couldn't quite put his finger on how exactly he ended up where he ended up. The show had finished with the cast and audience all singing "Everything is Beautiful" together, except for him. He couldn't sing. And the next thing he knew, the crowd was gone, and the ladies of the boa had surrounded him on his way out. And now he was here at some 4-story 1890s mansion in a bad part of town at 4 a.m. with all the ladies, led by Mitzi Misdeed herself. It seemed like the kind of unwholesome situation his parents would have warned him about if they could ever have imagined it happening. "You're an honorary drag queen tonight, Scotty," said Mimi, his waitress. "Oh, more than honorary," said Mitzi. "You're one of us, I think, little bunny. I could tell by your stone-cold, terrified paralysis during our entire show." "Tell me I'm wrong. I dare you." "Mitzi dares you," said Mimi. The rest of the ladies nodded their heads. "You've been dared, Scotty," said Dee Dee, the accordion player. Said Scott. The inside of his mouth felt as if he'd been stung by 100 bees. Words had always been the square wheels on the road of life for him. "That's what I thought," said Mitzi. She walked into the mansion and turned on lights. She wore well-worn army boots with a tie-dyed muumuu. The floorboards creaked where she stepped. "This is my home," she said, spreading her arms wide. The ladies still surrounded Scott, almost zipped around him like a backpack, and ushered him into the living room. "You have lovely bone structure," said Cece. She had dressed as a soldier and tap danced to the Ballad of the Green Berets sung by Barry Sadler in the show, losing equipment and the pieces of a uniform bit by bit as the song progressed until she ended up dancing in nothing but an American flag bikini. Scott was still of two minds whether it was patriotic or not. "She should do Twiggy in the show," said Kiki. "Twiggy? Scotty's not English. Why not Edie Sedgwick?" said Mimi. "What about Joey Heatherton?" said Dee Dee. Scott had no idea who Twiggy or Edie Sedgwick were. But she'd seen Joey Heatherton on Ed Sullivan. "Oh yeah, she could do Joey. We could make her blonde. We'd need to see her legs." Ladies, said Mitzi, "can we let her be her first? Before we put her into the show?" She turned to Scott. "What's your girl name, dear?" I never thought about it," said Scott. "Oh my, you are a newborn, aren't you? We've been given a grave responsibility then. Well, everybody here has two names because we all deserve better than the one old ill-fitting name we got trapped with as boys. Hence, Mimi, Kiki, Dee Dee, Cece. And I think you look exactly like Zsa. Zsa, Scott knew who she was. But the important thing is, said Mitzi, is you're one of us now. But can't we call her JoJo for Joey Heatherton, said Dee Dee. She assumed an attitude of exaggerated prayer and frosted pink.
We're going to kick the second half off John, you want to come on up?
Sure.
Michael, you want to come on up? So, when I was in New Orleans, when we were there for a month in April, May, I started writing a series of poems based on various streets in New Orleans, trying to capture their history and their contemporary feel. And it was going along really well. And then Royal Street happened. And this is the result. Now, I need to let you know that of the cast of 4 people, we lost 2 players in the last 24 hours. So please bear with us, but let me introduce to you the folks who are my intrepid cast tonight. John Dowds is a Boston-raised, Chicago-based public high school teacher, slugging it out in the trenches by day and eating pizza in the shadows by night. Though currently without any publications, his record for starting projects he hasn't finished yet is world-renowned and continually expanding, thanks in no small part to serving the public good, or something like that. He wrote those words. I would never say that about him. What I would say is he's a Columbia College graduate, another of my star pupils, and was a top-notch Gumbo Fiction Salon intern. I've also had the pleasure of workshopping with him, and his insightful comments were extremely helpful. His students are lucky to have him. Anjali Premlani, she, her, is a Chicago-based playwright, director, and actor who was a journalist once. She was writer and online editor for the Prague Post in the Czech Republic and the founding artistic director of Accidental Shakespeare Theatre Company. Her first novel, The Marlin of Prague, Christopher Marlowe and the City of Gold, was published in 2022. Her recent plays produced in Chicago include The Black Knight and Where the Fox and the Hare Say Goodnight. She is currently the special events manager for the Speculative Literature Foundation, and her cat Boo Boo lives in the wall. Anjali goes back to the Twilight Tales days. She has performed in the stage readings of a couple of my plays, and we've had many delightful, productive peer pressure writing sessions at the Lincoln Park Zoo. Filling in at the last moment, Michael Penkus. Mike has had 24 stories published. He wrote a novel, Mistress Bunny and the Canceled Client. Woo! He's been part of Gumbo Fiction and Twilight Tales since 2004. Thank you, Mike. So, our cast, I will be both the narrator and the parasol twirling monkey who hates the 1930s gangster movies he loves so much. We have book reading monkey, a pompous professor emeritus at City and Central U, played by Anjali Premlani. Blue Dog from the world famous pop culture paintings by New Orleans artist George Rodrigo, played by John Dowds. And Purple Monster Backpack from one of the Royal Street Arts and Crafts shops, played by Michael Penkus. If you walk, I say as a narrator, if you walk Royal Street in New Orleans of an evening, pause and exchange pleasantries with the brass monkeys lighting the street through a fancy shop's windows. They'll look up from their book or their jazz parasol and tell you, Royal Street is a riches to rags story, doll.
As the war of northern aggression raged on, once rich plantation owners short on cash relinquished their family heirlooms. Crystal chandeliers, real silverware, massive custom-built armoires, and formal dining tables of rare woods, Italian marble statues, and courtyard fountains, all imported
at great expense
from Europe to Royal Street shops.
They were trying to raise some cash They were looking for some moolah. They needed the dough.
The precious pieces not parted with during the war
Or during Reconstruction.
were surrendered as the land was parceled up and sold off.
Descendants relocated, migrated, moved into houses so small those dining tables would take up 2 rooms.
As time went by, houses were built with closets. Bedrooms were too small to incorporate modern beds and antique armoires.
If you had the choice, what would you choose? Royal Street's still the place where the family heirlooms are left for loot. Antiquers across the country trek here for treasures.
National history lurks in every aisle. Family histories reside in each artifact. Classes ought to be taught in these stores.
Sometimes they are.
Woof there and hold your own leashes. Royal Street's more than antique furniture that no one can afford to ship home.
Shoot 5, scat, scram, hit the bricks, pound the pavement.
Humans with horse houses big enough to house these treasures can afford.
They would take it in stride. They wouldn't bat an eye out. Wouldn't give it no second thought. They take it all in stride, I tell ya.
The shipping fees.
Paintings that you go for astronomical songs, dog.
We knew you back when you were just a local phenomenon created by Georges Rodriguez.
College kids bop you up for their dorm wall.
Gruff, I'll paw print my point. Art abounds on Royal, mostly paintings, but
They enforce no standards.
that's
Much of it isn't fine.
that's great. Art for anyone, art for everyone.
Crocheted voodoo dolls.
Say no more. Get the point? Enough said.
And a small statue store with a short purple monster backpack. Has a 3D face and snout and paws reaching out for you.
Kid must be new on the block. A greenhorn, a tenderfoot, a noob.
Good to meet ya. Royal Street is a gas, man. Blue Dog gave me a ride. They're introducing me to all the neighbors.
Go away.
To my knowledge, there's no song that romanticizes Royal Street.
The Royal Street still exists, and Basin Street mostly doesn't.
Maybe musicians don't find it as emotionally compelling, at least historically.
Not much romance in selling your heirlooms or purchasing paintings and prints.
As it doesn't have a
Wrong again, Simeon. It's got bunches. Songs by Tuba Skinny, the Thomas Talbert Jazz Orchestra, Raul Reynoso, and...
No, none of them are in the Great American Song.
They're a bunch of upstarts, whippersnappers, Johnny-come-latelys.
Our poems devolved
Evolved.
into a play.
When the interlopers, encroachers, the Batinskis showed up.
What do you growls for?
Interlopers.
Encroachers.
And butts.
This will have to suffice.
The end. And our next gift bag goes to, Last four numbers, 419. We have a winner, Ambrosia in the back. Next up, we have K.M. Hertz. She is a former bookseller and current Chicagoland science fiction fantasy author who is an expert in indie publishing. She has two popular running series, Stories of the Restoration, an SF adventure series, and The Rollover Files, where superpowers hit humans in middle age. Her portrayal in that series of people with disabilities and how those can be overcome or even used in positive ways has always reminded me of Lois McMaster-Bujold's Miles Korkosigan series. Her latest book is Relics from a Traveling Show, a fantasy short story collection. She says, contents include whimsy, gargoyles, heroic aunties, brave doggos, and evil bureaucrats who always lose. Would with it so. She was a contributor to and played an essential role in the production of the Ludlow Charlington's Doghouse Animal Charity Anthology. Please welcome K.M. Hertz.
Scary on this side of the microphone. So I didn't know I was an expert in independent publishing.
Own it.
I'm owning it. I'm going to own it. But this is I have a segue, and not the kind you write on. An expert in independent publishing probably would have had a bookshop on their own website ages ago. Yeah. But I just figured it out about 4 days ago.
Yay!
So I now I'm able to actually provide a bookshop on my website to anyone. So in honor of this particular evening, since I've been doing Gumbo Fiction since 2015, and it's been instrumental in my growth as an author. So on my website, kmherkus.com, at the top right now, you will find a tab for Gumbo Fiction, and behind that tab is the ability to download for free an ebook copy of this.
Ooh. Wow.
Once you learn how to do the whole bookshop thing and you find out how easy it is to make pages on the website, so I just kind of did that on the bus on the way here. All right, so I am going to read tonight for my spouse, because my beloved spouse man, this is his favorite of all my stories. It's one that I debuted the very first scene of here at Gumbo Fiction, wherein an adventure wherein I learned that I cannot read the first scene of this story without crying, so I'm not reading that one. It's actually a very sweet story, so I'm going to read you the sweetest scene out of it. It's about a child of a mixed marriage, one mortal and one fae, who calls themselves a child of the thresholds, and they've been summoned back to meet with their father. And so this means that they have to go over cloud and under hill, and they're about to do that. Let's see. The groom's trail in my mother's backyard takes me through a carefully maintained parkland. Birdsong and the rustle of green leaves welcome me. Pale spring sunlight glows on new grass, and the deep blue skies promise hot summer days around the corner of time. I breathe in the heavy sweetness of peonies and lilac, and when I lick my lips, I taste early roses. My favorite threshold sits beneath the wide white trunk of a half-fallen beech tree whose crown is held aloft by a supportive neighbor. Before I reach it, I collect myself an armload of flowers. One step and another through the doorway of living wood, and I go from here to there. Simple as that. My first step lands with a splash, and muddy water flows over the tops of my shoes. On this side of reality, clouds and chilly silence rule the day. Drifting mist swallows the upper branches of gray-barked maples and rough oaks. The quiet is a soft, soggy thing, the air empty of sound and thick with water. No one will ever call my father subtle. Powerful, yes. Subtle, no. The weather, far beyond his own territories, often responds to his mood. Being forced to travel like this through storm and rack is a common punishment for my little rebellions. Once he nearly froze me to death in a blizzard. Since then, I've been packing the latest in expedition gear when I cross over. Weather is weather, no matter its source, and modern mortal textiles are damned close to magical. Dreary and dank is no challenge for waterproof boots. I break out my featherweight rain jacket and rain pants and continue my journey in total comfort. Not far along the muddy path, I find my way blocked by a masterpiece of a spiderweb. The spiraling lines of it stretch across 6 feet of open air, centered over the path and anchored high and low with sturdy threads to the nearest trees. This is a toll gate as solid as any ever built on a mortal road. If I turn aside, I'll find a host of obstacles much worse. Hillocks, windfalls, briars, steering me back to the trail, or into a bog, or over a hidden cliff, depending on the mood of the web's builders. This bit of land you see answers to a swarm of pixies who love a good prank more than they love flowers, and they are total suckers for nectar. Centuries ago, these pixies claimed the patch of forest near the gate so they could zip across to our side and nibble on wild rose petals, sip from honeysuckle blooms. And my great-grandmother planted flower beds for them, gardens which were expanded by my grandmother and my mother in turn. They love our flowers, but they still charge for the privilege of crossing their land. Blood or bargain, either will do, but a price must be paid. That's the way things are here. Every scrap belongs to someone. Everything comes with a cost. My father would clear a path for me through his patchwork properties if I asked. His word is law, and his goodwill governs all who answer to him, including even pixies. But I've never asked, and I never will, because I enjoy disappointing him.
Yeah.
Since I have neither the wit nor the muscle to fight my way across to him, he assumes I degrade myself by bartering with lesser powers. We are forced by our natures to only deal in truths, so secrets have a particular appeal. He has his, I have mine. This is my oldest one. I haven't paid a single toll since my first trip here, the crossing I made by accident as a child. Back then, no one told me I was different. I mean, I knew, but no one explained or trained me or told me about the rules of this world. Mom was and is a big believer in the protective power of denial. So I was well into the woods here before I realized that I'd wandered into a whole new world. Now I know I was never in serious physical danger. No one outside Pops' court would dare harm the bloodkin of the ruler, not permanently anyway. But when the first creatures I met demanded payment for my passage, I was 7 years old, terrified, confused, and completely lost. The pixies had expected a drop or two of blood, a taste of my father's power by proxy, maybe. Instead, I'd offered them every childish treasure in my school bag and pockets. Textbooks, comics, shiny stones, blue jay feathers, pencils, foil-wrapped chocolates, books. I doled them all out one by one to my astonished audience. And when I saw how much delight every new item brought them, I dumped out the rest and told them to keep everything. I was raised to share, and I liked making people happy. I still do. So by chance, my meager gifts gained me more credit than I would ever spend. Offering all I had with no expectation of proper bargain, there is a major power in that kind of gift. That I learned later. Then, pure luck. There's a magic to luck too, I suppose. So the legacy of that first exchange sways before me now, the letters of my own name and a recognizable smiley face crafted in an arc of sticky, water-sparkled silk. Impossible not to smile at the sight of it. Good work, I say, and tip my head back to look for the web spinners. A drop of water falls directly into my right eye. 3 more drops splash my forehead. 1, 2, 3, targeted dead center. Well, that makes my welcoming committee 4 pixies, with one of them clearly new to their wings.
Yeah.
I grin at the gem-bright flickers hiding behind leaves above me. A first flight, is it? An affirmation of dewdrops spatters down upon me. I sweep a bow to the trees. I offer my felicitations. First flights are careful private affairs. Being allowed so close to a vulnerable new pixie, wobbly and fragile, this is a precious sign of the swarm's esteem. Pixies are immortal, you see, but they're ephemeral too, eternally cycling through life stages and recalling little of each previous incarnation. No one in this group would have been alive for my last visit, not in their current forms. Individuals come and go. The swarm never forgets. Many people in my father's lands, especially the courtiers who thrive on their schemes and plots, disdain pixies as frivolous because of this. Pixie disinterest in the past or future makes them politically useless, and their fertility wins them no friends among the more powerful sorts who conceive rarely and wrangle ferociously over dwindling inheritances. Pests, they call pixies, but the dismissal is tempered with wariness. Pixies are flighty, yes, but they're also fierce and numerous, and each swarm can hold a grudge forever. They guard well those they love, and I feel honored to be included in that category. Every time I visit, they escort me past the shifting territories of far more predatory beings straight to my father's personal estate. By the laws of power, they must do that much. My first gift paid all. Because I'm determined that there be more to my life than balance and bargains, I continue to bring small offerings of whatever I think they'll enjoy. They're especially fond of violas. Tastier than pansies, they insist. I can't tell the difference. Shall we greet one another face to face today? I ask as I lay my flowers beside the path, or am I too terrifying to approach? The canopy rustles and crystal chime laughter breaks the quiet, brightening my mood and freshening the air. One glittering pixie flits to a lower branch and showers me with kisses that scatter in an ice fall of green sparks. They're made as much of beetles' wings and butterfly legs as they are of human parts. All their colorful bits and pieces are held together by delicate threads of magic. This one responds to my teasing with a shake of her tiny fist. I am the Charlotte, and I fear nothing, she declares. We ask no toll, but we would welcome a compliment for our web. I make a show of closely examining their work. They love this part so much. It's some pig. Terrific. Radiant. Humble even. My literary references are answered with a chorus of peeping laughter and a shower of dew from the leaves. I duck under the web to view it from the other side before rummaging in my bag. Here are new words, freely given to add to your glory. A book full of brave rabbits, clever badgers, and courageous mice. Charlotte swoops in for the prize, which will be memorized and recited aloud long after the pages fade and crumble into the loam. We will cherish it, she says, with utmost solemnity. I'll meet a Martin on some future visit, I'm sure. Moments like this make these trips home bearable. Are you the only brave one, dear Charlotte, or will others introduce themselves today? 3 more glittery flyers drop into view, 2 green, 1 fiery orange and unsteady in the air. Charlotte joins hands with the wavering flyer. This one came to New Wings at dawn. She's not yet chosen a name. We're joined by the Templeton and the Wilbur, who will lead the rest of our swarm in attendance. Be welcome and travel freely under our aegis. Lead on, I said, and I will gladly follow. She ducks low to tickle my cheek with her toes, then departs with a last wet sprinkle of magic. A hum of wings announces the arrival of the rest of the swarm. They swirl ahead through the trees, trailing laughter and light behind them. I wipe my cheeks clean and suck the wet flavor of starlight off my fingertips. And if you'd like the rest of it, ampercus.com.
Yay!
Next up is Jay, a guy I always call Bada Boom. Jay Bada Boom Badasinga. He is the New York Times best-selling co-author of the blockbuster Walking Dead novels, as well as more than 50 acclaimed short stories and 25 original novels and nonfiction works. That includes The Killer's Game, my favorite of his novels, which is now a major motion picture from Lionsgate, available on various streaming services. Jay also collaborated with the late, great Stan Lee on the maestro's last unpublished superhero concept, The Devil's Quintet. His creative nonfiction book, The Sinking of the Eastland, is about one of the worst maritime disasters in American history, which took place on the Chicago River. It was adapted into a musical, produced by Looking Glass Theater. Jay has been a frequent guest and supporter of both Twilight Tales and Gumbo Fiction Salon, going all the way back to his first novel. Please welcome Jay Badasinga.
Thank you. I'll be brief. It's getting late. First thing I want to say is, oh, thank you. Thank you. The first thing I was going to say is I love Tina Jens. Yeah. Barry, don't worry, it's platonic. Completely platonic. I feel like we've been through wars together. I don't know why. It's just my first book was 1994, and Tina was the first person in Chicago that invited me in and introduced me to like-minded people and had me come to Twilight Tales and do a crazy reading with a CB radio. So I don't know if there's any old-timers with us tonight. No offense. I'm one. Okay, so I'm going to try to be brief, but I want to read a little piece from a book that I don't even know if you are aware of this, but it was definitely inspired by you. It's my New Orleans thriller, Twisted, but it came out 19 years ago, and we had known each other for many years by then, and you influenced me. You are the little piece of New Orleans here. You brought New Orleans here to Chicago. And you know, it mentored me, it really influenced me. So I'm gonna read just a little teeny piece of the prologue to this book. Basically, it's a part of a series, the Ulysses Grove Quartet, and this particular book is about a serial killer who may or may not have supernatural powers, who kills in the eyes of hurricanes. I know it's completely implausible, okay? But I thought it was cute. Okay, so this is the opening. Think Tina. I can't see either. I agree. Marty, I can't either. Oh, one last thing. I'm going to read this in what I call my Scarlett O'Hara voice. Because I started reading The Walking Dead at conventions, and I just thought, you know, that voice just worked with that Southern Gothic. So that's how I'm going to read this. Bear with me. Prologue. City of ghosts. City of martyrs. New Orleans, present day. That night, as the latest storm closed in on the old man's row house on Dumaine Street, the world seemed to turn inside out. The black rain coming down in sheets strafed across the professor's ruined tile roof. The Spanish windows rattled and thrummed. The wrought iron galleries moaned and whistled. Every few moments, lightning flickered, filling the cozy bachelor's lair with the glare of a photographer's strobe. Hunkered down in that cluttered living room, surrounded by his beloved books and wax 78s, the old man tried to ignore the overwhelming feeling that the imminent hurricane was the least of his problems. Nowadays, he and his fellow New Orleans had become practically inured, if not downright contemptuous, of hurricane warnings. Besides, the old man had bigger catastrophes on his personal horizon. He had made troubling discoveries over the past few months, as well as grave mistakes, dreadful mistakes. Mistakes that were now coming back to torment him through terrifying permutations. He put his book down, unread, on the side table, winds continuing to rage against the window glass. He rose to his full height and tried to decide what to do, to evacuate or to wait the storm out in the reinforced garage behind the building. How many people had asked themselves that very question when Katrina was bearing down on the Gulf Coast? How many lives were snuffed out in 2005 in the fury of those floodwaters because of a single poor decision? And how many more perished because of the simple, inexorable fact of poverty? For a man in his late 70s, Professor Moses Andrew Jackson DeLord, PhD, was not the type to ruminate on such matters. He was a robust old coot of impressive stature, both figuratively and literally. Nearly 6 feet tall in his stocking feet, with long stork-like legs and a little oval paunch. He wore the garb of a 19th century aristocrat. Evening jacket, silk cravat, and riding boots. His long iron gray mane swept back off his lined leathery face, and the single delicate gold loop piercing his flabby left earlobe only hinted at his bohemian lifestyle, not to mention his proud gayness. So how had he sunken to this point? How had he botched his affairs so completely? Moses DeLorde was supposed to be a man of measured judgment, one of the old lions of academia, an authority in arcane corners of history, anthropology, and archaeology. Now look at him, alone, afraid, reduced to the level of a Neanderthal, huddling horror-stricken in his cave. Waiting, just waiting for the angry nature gods to subside. Like so many folks in this town, DeLorde seemed to suffer from post-hurricane stress disorder, a form of manic depression punctuated by periods of debilitating pessimism. Pessimism about the future, about God and country. But all this merely served to bolster the professor's stubbornness and pride and insistence on staying put, like most of his hardier fellow denizens. The city had weathered 3 centuries of turmoil. No goddamned hurricane was going to shut them down now. He heard another noise from down the hall. Maybe from the bedroom. It was a flinty, scraping noise, followed by a series of clicks. He had been hearing these noises all evening and had initially thought them simply figments of his imagination, or merely the palmetto branches scraping the windows. But now he was convinced they were the sounds of a human intruder. Someone was trying to get inside. The nastiness seems to be commencing a trifle early this time around, he muttered to himself, reaching down into the pocket of his coat. He pulled out a small can of pepper spray, a precautionary purchase that he had made last year during the days martial law ruled the quarter. In those awful weeks after Katrina had flooded the entire metro area, when the French Quarter, the only high and dry area for miles, had been reduced to the Wild West, DeLorde had cowered day in and day out behind his second-floor gallery like Gloria Swanson in Sunset Boulevard. The little aerosol bottle felt reassuring in his gnarled, liver-spotted hand as he started down the back hallway toward the noise. His bedroom was empty. The French doors latched. The windows looked locked still securely. A single bedside lamp threw a dull yellow cone of light across the Persian rug. Nothing out of ordinary here. The bathroom was also as he had left it. Shower curtain, keeping just enough distance. Shower curtain drawn back, rusty water dripping perpetually into an old clawfoot bathtub. But just as he was about to turn away and make his exit, he paused suddenly, noticing something peculiar on the outer surface of the window above the toilet. The little porthole tile-style pane overlooking the rear alley 2 stories down. No human being could reach the outside of that window. The drop was at least 35 feet. A person would have to have wings. Sweet Jesus on the cross, the Lord uttered, staring at the symbol scrawled there, his southern drawl barely a whisper. He began backing away, moving almost involuntarily until his back bumped the opposite wall of the corridor. He kept gaping at that window and the strange characters drawn across it in red paint. And the more he stared at it, especially the way it was streaking and blurring in the rain, the more he realized it was not red paint at all. This cannot be happening, he murmured, his voice drowned by the sound of the rain. It sounded like applause. He turned and staggered back down the hallway toward the living room. An old Princess model phone sat on a French provincial table by the fireplace. He grabbed it and tried to dial the non-emergency number for the Orleans Parish Detective Squad. He knew a good old boy over there who might listen to the ravens of a crazed old queen. The phone was dead. Damn. He hobbled over to the hat rack by the door. His London fog slicker hung there next to his walking cane and Panama hat. He quickly shrugged on the coat and grabbed the Panama and the cane and a large umbrella. Then he awkwardly whirled around, searching for his cell phone. It sat perched on the charger by the bookshelf. He went over, snatched up the cell, then made his exit. Quickly, down the rickety back stairs, across an iron platform greasy with rain, past his new tomato plants, past his ragged bougainvillea trellis, still bearing the scars of Katrina's winds all this time later. The tip of his old lion head cane slipped and squeaked as he trundled through a narrow gate and into the storm-swept back alley. Rain lashed his face as he hobbled across slimy cobblestones. Lightning flashed again, turning the scene into a silent movie flicker show. The old man turned up his collar, lowered his hat, and squinted up at the gray shrouds. What in God's name did he think he was going to see? And what did he think he was going to do if he saw something? The storm pressed down on him as he gazed up at the back of his place and tried to figure out how someone could draw an ancient symbol on his bathroom window. He saw nothing but tangled power lines and rainwater streaming down cracked, weathered timbers. He made a decision then. He would skip the parish detective squad. He would make a call to the one man who might take all this nonsense seriously. Ulysses Grove. The professor took a deep, pained breath, then, and headed for the mouth of the alley, completely unaware that he was being followed. Thank you very much, Mama. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Next up is the charming individual who has been running the photo booths all night. Maggie Wagner is a playwright, storyteller, variety performer, and theater reviewer. You can catch them spinning yarns for Loose Chicks and Gumbo Fiction Salon, and catch their furry orange alter ego Nitty Gritty at Chicago's burlesque venues. Their Vegetable Diaries installments have been a huge hit at many local reading series. They also contributed the charming short story, Virile Sires, like ham sandwiches, not welcome in the millinery, to the Ludlow Charlington's Doghouse Anthology. Please welcome Maggie Wagner.
been to a Bad Grammar hosted by Brendan Detzner, who's probably still back there somewhere. And the whole group of people were like, "You've never been to Gumbo Fiction? You gotta go to Gumbo Fiction. We're all gonna be there. You should go with us." And yeah, that was it for me. I started coming pretty regularly, and I'd never read before any of these venues. Bad Grammar, Gumbo Fiction, never read a thing in my life, was completely full of stage fright, and I think that's the reason too why I kept building it, kept getting stronger on stages, and now I'm a complete and total ham. So thank you so much. I didn't know I was your student. Here we are. So Vegetable Diaries, if y'all don't know what it is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the ramblings, strange and insane thoughts of some vegetables. Just picture VeggieTales, but really, really dark. I've got one that I picked out specifically for you because of its relationship to gumbo. It's called Acquired Taste by Okra. We've been doing this a long time, he and I. He will not relax, and everything must be exactly on his terms. I have to think if he had any real concern over who saw him walking the street with me, he wouldn't bother. He'd find somebody else. But no, it's like clockwork with him. He tells the missus and that the boys want him over at the sports bar, gives the little seedlings a kiss on the forehead, and then he calls me. He asked me to meet him somewhere out of the way, some dingy little spot he wouldn't look at twice. Always in the same dark jacket, always same obscure shade leaves. I don't bother to hide because I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm here to enjoy myself. And he can ask me as much as he wants to tone it down or lower my voice, but I don't mind people looking. I don't care who sees. I'm a well-built pod of okra with a tall, handsome bunch of Swiss chard on my arm, buying her drinks, holding court until they close the bars at 2 a.m. Why shouldn't I be happy? He's always looking over his shoulder. He's not really with me until we get behind a locked door and closed blinds. Then he's a fountain of sweetness. He loves me, he says. I am so crisp and so cold, he says. He never mentions my mucus or my seeds. Even when we're alone. Those things tend to startle other vegetables. Everybody knows that okra have a strange consistency, but no one wants to say it out loud. My Swiss chard, he means well. But he's waiting for me to give him permission to mention my innards. Most vegetables assume okra must be so embarrassed to be so slimy. It must pain us disgusting creatures to get through our days. What a lucky thing to enjoy the company of Swiss chard in the first place, huh? I don't like to imagine him thinking these thoughts, but you wouldn't hide your shame in the back of a dive bar that meant nothing to you either. I'm all seeds, and I'm all mucus, and that will never be different. And if you don't enjoy it a little, well, it's sort of sweet. But he had no idea how to talk to an okra when I first met him. He was polite in that frightened way that is so careful not to mention a thing about my strange pentagonal ridges or my jaunty little green cap, for fear that those things would come off as offensive. He just needed my permission to assure him he wasn't being insensitive. I just told him that sort of thing could put undue pressure on an okra. And he loosened up. But he still looks at me most times when he needs that permission again. I am not nearly so careful. Mostly, it doesn't matter to me how precious he'd like for things to be. It's fascinating and infuriating watching him live his days with the bulk of his expensive palm and comfort, cheered on by his wife and his seedlings inside his successful little life. You can have everything, but be so at odds with yourself that you don't belong in that nice world you created anymore. He's afraid of being stranded away from all of his usual comforts, and I know I've been stranded myself. When something good is stripped away from you, you're so busy feeling wounded, you don't notice that new thick hide forming around you. I joked with him once. that we should just forget everything. I know a place. I told him where there was a pot of simmering oil just right at snapping point, and a bowl of dredging flour, and we could get fried like that. We might be the kind that gets dredged in enough flour that our crispy little sides affix to each other, and we're just joined like that, even after we cool. It may have been a joke when I started saying it, but by the end I really wanted to hear him say yes. More than anything, I wanted that right away. No hesitation, just yes. And he just scratched his little spine, smiled, and told me, yeah, whatever you say, Okra. It was so light and easy, and it meant exactly the opposite. We reached the apex of all the things that I would most certainly never insist on, and he would most certainly never follow through with. So when he returned home that night, he sent me a signature phone message, 3 little X's and 3 little O's, never his name or mine, no pet names either, and I had a message history full of the screen of the tiniest little haikus, pages and pages. And the screen asked me if I was sure I wanted to delete our entire message history. I wasn't, but I did it anyway. I really hope he finds her. That patient Okra who'll be there to coax him into the deep fryer. Me! I'm already battered and dredged, and I couldn't wait another second if I tried.
Next up, another tall woman in my life, Christine Fugate. Christine is a Chicago native and a graduate of the Story Workshop method at Columbia College, Chicago. Her character-driven work explores complexities and relationships. Christine has been published in Hippocampus Magazine, 5 Minutes, Chicago Sun-Times, and Oprah.com, and she has recently completed a memoir about her father. Despite our individual connections to Columbia College and the local writing community, we actually first met socially at a neighborhood restaurant and bar called Vinales, R.I.P., which used to be downstairs from a giant Tower Records, R.I.P. The first fiction I heard by her was a marvelous portrayal of this stretch of Clark Street and its odd denizens. More recently, here at Gumbo, we've enjoyed her mythic memoir vignettes. She reprises one of my favorites tonight. Please welcome Christine Fugate.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. I have a lot to say about Gumbo, but I couldn't have written this book without Gumbo, I think. And I really appreciate you guys for listening to my memoir, which is not genre fiction, but something a little different in the Gumbo. So this piece, let's see, what do you need to know? My dad was a carny for 3 decades, and he left our family to be in the carnival, which he started when he was 8 years old. So he had a lot of tall tales, and when I met him later in life, he shared a lot of those stories with me. So that's kind of the basis of this story. He was about maybe mid to late 20s in this piece, and the title is The Gator Tamer. In Florida, the first thing my daddy wanted to do when they got down to the swampy parts was to pay a visit to Lefty. Lefty lived near a trailer park campsite, joining a small man-made lake. Most of the guys in the carnival stayed down there for a few weeks every year during the winter season. For my daddy, Lefty was the best thing about it. Part of the reason my daddy liked Lefty so much was that Lefty was a tough son of a bitch. He may have only been an alligator with 3 legs to the other guys, but to my daddy, Lefty was a marvelous beast. Lefty survived getting his left arm chopped off somehow, Some nights, my daddy would lay awake in bed wondering how in the hell it had happened. Sliced off by a motorboat? Bit off during a fight with a fellow alligator? Maybe he'd been born without one? Whatever the answer, the gator's missing arm made him recognizable, memorable. He wasn't just some gator, they knew him. And they nicknamed him Lefty. The first night back, they'd sit on the small dock of the small lake. You could throw a football, not very hard, and it would clear that lake. Their feet dangled, and the dock swayed from their rampant jostling. They smoked cigarettes, drank beers, and swapped stories with wild laughter. The moonlight shone along the dark surface of the still, silent water. Lefty liked to sneak up on them, or maybe that's just how gators were. Lefty's eyes would barely be above water level. A package of bologna with its bright yellow lid peeled away sat behind the guys next to a lineup of beer bottles. Could Lefty see the yellow smudge in the distance? Or did the smell of bologna lure him closer? Or did he recognize the band of loud guys who made a ruckus wherever they went? Lefty waded through the water towards them, stealthy, hunting, the guys oblivious, until Lefty got under the dock and flicked his tail to knock on the wood. The guys would go flying up, leap into their feet like toast from a toaster, bacon grease in a frying pan, corn kernels in oil. For a few terrifying seconds, that first day back at the dock for the season, they'd forget it was just good old Lefty. And a little flash of fear would light up their eyes. Lefty would circle the dock until they settled down, then splash the water with his tail, as if he was saying, "Hey guys, remember me? It's Lefty." My daddy was the one who figured out Lefty liked bologna. It started more than a few years back. He tossed what he had in his hand, gave Lefty the rest of his lunch, half a bologna sandwich on white bread with a smear of mustard. It almost seemed like the magnificent bastard smiled. My daddy had a way with animals, a keen sense of them, nothing school learned, more of an innate sense of primal urges with a bit of daring mixed in. He peeled a slice of bologna from the package and held it in the air. "Lefty," he'd call out into the flatness of the dark lake. "Is this what you're looking for?" The new guy in the group always laughed with a nervous chuckle, but the rest of the guys were dead serious. They knew gators were nothing to mess with, but that made no difference to my daddy. He whistled. The sound was absorbed into the surrounding trees. The bologna slipped a little between his fingers as he waggled it through the air. "Come here, boy." He stretched his long arm over the dock, his boot heels lifting as he leaned over the edge and waved the piece of bologna higher, as far as he could reach. His buddy Gary stepped over and tucked a finger into his back belt loop to keep him from falling into the inky blackness. The other guys scanned the lake for clues. Their eyes darted to slight ripples in the water, straining in the dark. Where was Lefty? A silence they rarely knew, other than those moments before and after sleep, deafened them. All they could hear was the muffle of their own hearts beating furiously in their chests. My daddy held out the bologna with a grin. He knew what was about to happen, and it made him tremble with excitement. There was something between him and Lefty, more than an understanding, almost a partnership. They were putting on a show, and they both enjoyed it. In a blink, Lefty leapt out of the water, slicing through the surface in the black night with athletic ease, jaws wide, teeth gleaming in the moonlight. Sometimes time slowed as the bologna dangled there, and Lefty was in midair, 8 feet of gator, tail in the water, heading towards them, towards the bologna. His fingers let the bologna slip, and Lefty's jaws would smack shut, with a clap so loud the guys would yelp out in fear that my daddy had come so close to losing a couple fingers or his whole damn hand. Before Lefty fell back in the water, with a polite splash that sprayed their legs and feet, Gary would yank him back by his belt loop, and the ruckus of the guys resumed. Lefty usually had a limit to the show, about a package of bologna each night. By the time the package was done, the payroll was long gone. A few of the guys would muster some bravery and take a turn at tossing slices into the lake towards Lefty. Lefty would swim with open jaws to collect the pieces of bologna, but he wouldn't leap out of the water for anyone but my daddy. Sometimes Lefty would find them on dry land near the trailer park grounds. The guys would be drinking beers after a long day at the carnival on the back of their trucks, tossing empties into a pile 20 feet away. Sometimes the stores closed up before my daddy could get any bologna for Lefty. He'd grab a stick and chase Lefty away. A gator tamer, he called himself. Lefty would stretch his one arm out, then heave his body forward with a push from his back legs. My daddy would rile up the other guys, and they'd play along, chasing Lefty, chuckling like little boys on the verge of getting in trouble. No one got too close or pushed Lefty too hard with their sticks. It was for fun, and even though they liked Lefty, they never forgot that he was a wild animal. Each of them had imagined Lefty's enormous mouth snapping shut on their hand or arm. To my daddy, Lefty was his buddy. Lefty was gentle and absurdly adoring. Lefty followed him around, let him ride his back in the lake water. The guys even say they once wrestled, but only once, because wrestling a one-armed gator didn't seem fair. My dad really told me that. Maybe Lefty knew, the same way I knew without knowing why, despite everything that had happened. My daddy was a good man, a big-hearted, tough talker who had more in common with Lefty than he realized. He too could destroy things by opening his mouth, with a sweep of his long limbs, by following his instincts. My daddy could ruin everything in his life too. Thank you.
And once more, if you haven't, when you leave, if you have not signed my autograph sheet, please do, because this has been such an amazing night, and that will help me remember them. Next up is another of my oldest friends in the community. And I'm not talking about age, I'm talking about how long we've known each other. Richard Schwedick is a Nebula Award-winning and Hugo-nominated science fiction writer.
I'm not escaping, I just need more water.
Okay. He is also an adjunct professor of instruction at Columbia College, Chicago, teaching science fiction, fantasy, young adult, writing for children, Tolkien, and anything else they need this amazing guy to pinch hit for. He's been teaching writing and conducting workshops since 1991. He goes back to the Twilight Tales days. He felt the cold ghost spots at the top of an otherwise overly heated stairs and remembers dinosaurs. He hopes that dinosaurs remember him too. I had the honor of publishing the first of the SAR stories in the Twilight Tales chapbook. It went on to be reprinted in Fantasy and Science Fiction magazine and as a year's best. All of his sequel stories were also published in Fantasy and Science Fiction magazine, and we are ever hopeful for a collection. Yes. Means that Please welcome my friend, Richard.
Thank you. Chosen this, and now I have to see. Everybody else has been having their vision problems, but
That's a gooseneck. As you need.
there you go. I think this sounds audible without like turning into a Blue Oyster Cult concert. So, I've done the source stories and I don't know if you're familiar with the small press publisher Mythic Delirium. Mike Allen runs it with his partner. Mike Allen wants to do the source story collection.
Oh. Yes!
The partner is still deciding. So, yeah. And I said, oh, should I read one of those wild and crazy scenes in the source stories where Axel is allegedly commanding this toy car through the sewer system that is about to shoot out through, you know, should I do that or should I do a scene from Bronte's Egg? And like, all right, I will shut up and give myself, 2 more minutes. I was in Seattle and I was feeling like I was the senior partner at the World Science Fiction Convention. Went, oh, Richard Schwittig, you haven't died yet. Why don't you sit over here with all the old bearded white guys, Come on over here. And it was like, it was the call of death. And it was like, yeah, my career's fucked, It's just gone, that's it, I had just gone to Seattle to confirm it. I wanted to be pronounced dead at the World Science Fiction Convention, and instead it turns out that across the street from the Hugo Awards, Buddy Guy is playing the last show of his last tour. He's 89 years old, put out his last album, is turning 90, he's gonna throw in the towel. It's across the street. Who gives a fuck about the Hugo? Seriously. Everybody's abandoning. No, I'm in a Hugo. Sorry, sold out. I'll give you 3 Hugo Awards. No. Don't need that stuff. So anyway, while I was there feeling useless, I was at a poetry reading. I was doing really well, and somebody came up and said, oh, I really like those source stories that you did. And they usually mention Measure of All Things and Bronte's Egg. Those are the ones that are best known. But the guy said, my favorite of those stories is the one you wrote called Orphe. And that's the story where Diogenes, who's one of the bigger of the source, is the librarian in the house where the Soers live. And he drops dead one day. And Axel doesn't know what to do as far as death goes. He's inconsolable. And they plan a funeral service and people say really nice things, but Axel is still inconsolable. And Geraldine, who, we don't know where Geraldine is from, the toy company people, like, we didn't make this. We don't know. Yeah, and Geraldine just comes up to him while he's just sleepless at night, just pacing around. And what's going to happen as far as Dio? And she says, because Agnes, of course, Agnes the Stegosaurus thinks like most of us, and that it's like, everything dies, everything stinks, humans are worthless, don't even. And Geraldine comes up and says, time never dies. And Axel is suddenly like, yeah. And everything is in our time. And so instead of making a spaceship, why don't we make a time ship? And he starts talking about this at at the service at the funeral for Diogenes, and he starts all the other stores are going, time ship, time ship, time ship, and they're all, and of course Agnes is like, what's wrong with these people? But here, let me find. Everybody says very, very nice things, and then so what happens? You see that down on the floor? That's my bookmark. That's what I got. But yeah, I'll just say very quickly what Doc says in a more serious moment of that.
When we came into the world, Doc began, our meaning was assigned to us by our makers and our owners. When we were no longer needed, our meaning evaporated until we came here. Now we live for ourselves and for each other. No one typified this better than our friend Diogenes. It may be too much to ask that we should all live like he did, but at least we can honor how he lived and that he lived, and keep our love for him alive. And by doing so, we can keep his love for us alive as well. That's Doc. What Agnes says. Humans always talk about the next world and the afterlife. They also say that animals can't go there, that only humans can. Well, it's a crock. And if there is such a thing, they can keep their damn afterlife. There's plenty more who deserve it than a bunch of stupid humans. Dio doesn't deserve this. It's just wrong. So that's, you have Agnes. Now, all right, funeral is just about done. And the humans, Tom, Dr. Margaret, Ms. Leahy, and Ms. Wonderly took the coffin outside. The Buddhasaurs played their version of West End blues. Dut, 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 little bit of New Orleans. He played it again, and the Saurs filed out behind them. The coffin rested on a strange metal gadget Miss Wonderly had brought. The gadget would slowly and smoothly lower the coffin down into the grave, then retract and be pulled up by Miss Wonderly. Tom looked around at the gathered Saurs and humans. The silence at that moment seemed awkward. Everything that anyone wanted to say had been said inside. But there they all were, outside before the grave, waiting for what came next. And there was no way to get to what came next until Bronte sang, Yarwoo. The Saurs turned to her. A few of them immediately replied, Yarwoo. That's right, it's okay to sing along. While the others hesitated or started with the first note or couldn't bring themselves to sing at all. It's a song Bronte explained to Guinevere, the hatchling, the eggling as they called it. When we were first created in the factory labs, the humans taught it to us. It was part of our imprinting and training. We were supposed to sing it to the children, and they used it in all the advertising. It's a silly song. It's not a very good song, but it's simple, and it's one we all know. Bronte and Kara sang together. Yarwoo. And a few more Saurs joined in. Yarwoo. And a few more. Yar-woo, until all the saws joined in. Miss Leahy had started in with Bronte almost immediately, and Dr. Margaret joined, and then Tom, and even Miss Wonderly. It didn't take long to figure out, even if one had never heard it before. You've got two notes there. Carolyn stepped out from behind the backhoe, reluctantly, but even she began to sing in a husky, off-key voice. Yar-woo, 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 the dinosaurs love you. Yar-woo, 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 the dinosaurs love you. It's like opera. After the song, some of the saws went back inside, and a few more waited until the coffin was lowered into the grave before returning to the house. And some stalwarts, like Doc and Preston among them, remained until Carolyn pushed all the dirt back into the hole she had dug only that morning. I remember now what I was thinking yesterday afternoon, Doc said to Preston, before all this happened. It seems absurd now, and it drifted so quickly out of memory. It can't have any consequence. What is it? Preston stared at Carolyn patting the dirt down carefully with the back of the shovel. It seemed to me at the moment that perhaps we weren't mere accidents of nature. It's possible that we are inevitable. Preston stared at the mound of dirt before him. Carolyn took out a handkerchief and dabbed at her forehead, got into the backhoe and drove it to the trailer hitched to the back of the van. And Hubert turned around and headed inside. Big Sam, the Stegosaurus, and the brown Triceratops, Dr. David Norman, followed. He let the Egglings ride on his back all the way into the house, with Kara and Bronte at his side. It's a crazy notion, Preston said, placing his forepaw on Doc's back as he turned around. But it's a crazy world. That left Agnes, Sluggo, and Axel, the last ones at the grave, staring at the dirt mound. I hope you liked the ceremony, Sluggo said. How would he know? Agnes's voice wasn't as sharp or as loud as usual, and yet her words were as hard as ever. Would have liked the ceremony then. I don't want to leave him, Axel said. He'll be here. Agnes looked away from the grave. Out to the west, the sky was red and pink and a creamy sort of yellow. And above it was a blue that grew ever deeper and darker. She also saw what might have been a light, a flicker of movement between the tree trunks. Maybe an animal, maybe more idiot humans. The Reggie system would keep them out. She said nothing to the others. We'll always be able to come here so we can remember him, Sluggo said to Axel. We won't really leave him, and he won't really leave us. We better go in, said Agnes. It's getting dark, cold. No one moved. Axel, all that stuff you said in there. Agnes was still looking at the sunset. You know it's total crap, don't you? Time machines. You're going to build a time machine? You know, people have been talking about time machines for hundreds of years. You see any time machines lying around here? You think you can make a time machine? I don't know, Axel said. I want to make a time machine, A time ship. Fine, right. And that stuff about time doesn't die? Do you think that's true? Where did you get such a stupid idea? Geraldine said. Geraldine? She was making fun of you. She makes fun of all of us. You're going to believe someone who asks you if you're stupid every single day? Which Geraldine does. You know, she starts every conversation with, "Are you stupid?" Yeah. She wasn't making fun of me. Axel shook his head. Not this time. She said time doesn't die, and the universe is going to die too. The Earth is going to die, and the moon, and the sun, and the other planets too. The stars will burn out like candles, and there go your galaxies and everything else, including time. If everything dies, Axel says, then we all die, and Dio won't be so alone. Dio is not alone, Axel. He's not anything anymore. He was alive, now he's gone, and that's it. Finish. End of story. And when the time comes, it will be the same for all of us. I think you're wrong, said Sluggo. What? Agnes said at full volume, with maybe even a little bit more. You're wrong. Or at least you're not right. Not completely. Dio is still something. He's everything he ever was. That doesn't change because he's dead. That doesn't make him any less dead now. I think it does. We remember him. Until we die. Then that's over. And who will remember us? I don't know, said Sluggo. Maybe it's like what Doc said. We're not only looking at it in a small way. Just how it affects us. But that's not everything. Maybe what we all do makes up the universe, big as it is, and as little as we are. We're still part of it. We make it what it is, no matter when we're alive or when we die. Sluggo waited, but he heard no reply. He couldn't remember a time when he'd said so many words without being interrupted. For a moment, he was afraid that something might be wrong with Agnes. He waited a little longer for her to tell him he was an idiot before he asked, "Does that make any sense?" No. Agnes curled her tail and clawed at the lawn with her spikes. Out in the west, the red had dimmed to an ember color, surrounded by an undiluted indigo. The woods formed a ragged black outline behind it. It makes so little sense, it's like making no sense at all, Agnes said. You've been chewing on some funny plants. You're an idiot. Sluggo nodded, feeling strangely relieved. There were enough changes to contend with. Not having Agnes call him an idiot would have been one change too many. It's not a stupid idea, Axel said. Time doesn't die. Even if the universe stops, time doesn't die. Everything dies, Agnes said, with the weariness of someone repeating the same directions over and over again. Like the sun going down now, and night comes. It's that inevitable. But at night you see the stars and space and the whole universe out there. You can't see it in the daytime. You won't be seeing any stars when you're dead. Agnes turned away from them. I'm not saying that it's good or that I like it. It just is, okay? It's better to know it than to pretend it's not true. I wish it wasn't true, but it is. I'm sorry. Agnes, what did you say? Asked Sluggo. What? I thought I heard you say you were sorry. Yes, that's what I said. Are you going deaf? I said, I'm sorry. Now let's get back in. It's already dark. And the three of them didn't move. The chilly breeze started and grew stronger. You know, Sluggo said to Axel, maybe you don't have to make a time machine. Maybe we're the time machines. Space and time, Axel said. Time and space. He looked up at the early stars, now clearly visible. The universe is... We know, Agnes groaned. We know. She took a few steps closer to the grave. Dio, she said. This is stupid. I know you can't hear me. I have to say it. I want to see you again, and I know I can't, and everything else is crap, and I don't care. She looked at Sluggo and barked, believe anything you want. I don't care. Then she looked at Axel, and you, go ahead, build your damn time machine. Jump into it and take yourself someplace where I'll never have to listen to your insanity again. I don't care. Sluggo heard what he thought was a sob after she said this, and he pressed himself against her. He felt her trembling, but she didn't push him away. It's getting colder. Her voice was hoarse and even cracked a little. Let's go. She walked back to the house, Sluggo at her side. Axel tried to follow, but kept staring up at the early stars, at once infinitely far and remarkably close, like lights stretched across a huge ceiling under which everything fit, and to move from one place to another under them really wasn't like leaving at all. Maybe I can't make a time ship. Maybe time dies too, like Agnes said. Maybe. Come on, said Agnes. He hurried for the house again and stopped. He felt someone was behind him. He could almost hear the big feet against the grass. But when he stopped, the sound of the footsteps stopped too. Axel shut his eyes. Dio? He didn't hear an answer, but Dio never said much anyway. He imagined Dio standing out there alone, as if banished, wanting to be back inside with his friends and with the books. Axel wanted to swing back around and see him, but he remembered the Orphe guy and his wife. Orphe is how he refers to Orpheus. Orphe. That's how it is in French. It says Orphe. Orphe. The Orphe guy and his wife, and how important it was not to look back. It's okay, Dio. Axel opened his eyes, but he looked at the house, the lights in the windows, Sluggo and Agnes on the porch step, Tom in the doorway waiting. It's okay. I won't look back, I promise. He understood in his way that he had taken on a serious responsibility, more important than any time ship, more important than the exo-cyborg. As long as he remembered not to turn back and look, Dio would be there, always, just as he felt him there now. A big responsibility, but yes, he could do it. He had to do it. Come on, he said, and headed for the house once more. It's almost time for summer. I chose that because the person in the audience who said their favorite story was Orphe, they had read the story around the time he lost his dad. And he said it made it a lot easier for him. And I said, shit, you can keep your humor.
Thank you.
So, down to two readers, two raffle prizes. Thank you to Philip for fixing our bag disaster back there.
Made it, fixed it.
Next up is Sue Burke.
Ooh, hey.
Sue is a science fiction writer, a journalist, and a translator who has also lived in Milwaukee, Austin, and Madrid. Her most popular book is Symbiosis, which is about talking plants. It's the first of a trilogy published by Tor Books that include interference and usurpation. Hard to say at this point. You can find her fiction and the fiction she has translated in a variety of mass-market anthologies. I was very pleased to publish a charming sonnet by her in the Ludlow Charlington's Doghouse anthology. Please welcome Sue Burke.
Well, let me open with a 50-word short story, science fiction. On this planet, the native life form was intelligent and technologically advanced and communicated by scent. Her poor human nose understood not even the most basic conversations, but she had brought with her a trained teammate, her best friend, the perfect guide to the planet of the smells, a beagle. As Tina said, she organized an anthology, the Ludlow Charlington's Doghouse, to support Friends of Chicago Animal Care and Control. And I wrote a sonnet for that because to participate in this anthology, there were pictures of dogs in costumes that you had to write about. And I wrote about a dog that was dressed like Queen Elizabeth. So naturally, it had to be an Elizabethan sonnet. And something suitable for that age. So here we have the sonnet for dog number 6. When a crown weighs heavy, when a kingdom stands wide and windy, when the next message may bring due, a castle feels less a home and more a trap, entered by a drawbridge. When loyalty wears threadbare, when a heart wants courage, the dearest duty falls upon 4 paws. The keenest ears peaked, the kindest eyes dark. The strongest legs those that seek, find, and pause in a hall before a throne, there to stay as indefatigable companion. A nose that nudges, a head that lays on a lap. The king is never alone. When trust yields sorrow and esteem disgrace, a dog seeks out the hands that need its faith. So as a tribute to Tina, I am reading 3 pieces about dogs, because I know she's very fond of dogs. And this is a piece, well, dogs are noble creatures, as we know. Almost everybody likes dogs, except this person named Phoebe. Don't be like Phoebe. This is another piece of flash fiction called Dogs in Heaven. They say all dogs go to heaven, and it's true. All dogs, most cats, and even the occasional goldfish for reasons known only to God. As for human beings, perhaps God had a reason for sending a woman named Phoebe to heaven. She had expected to go down rather than up, with such certainty that when she arrived at the afterlife, she mistook it for hell, especially when she saw all those dogs cavorting wrong. Damn dogs in her malignant opinion. And surprisingly, The clouds of brimstone smelled pleasant, a bit like incense. She saw a lot of dogs and a lot of happy people, demons, no doubt. And a few cats, which were almost as bad as dogs, and a sort of golden floating spark, which she took for evidence of hellfire. Since she had nothing to hope for, she leaned against a bank of clouds, weeping and waiting for a demon to approach and torment her. Instead, a dog sat down in front of her, and it asked, "Why?" Talking dogs? Well, given the locale, anything could be possible, and a misstep might bring special punishment. So, despite her undeserved antipathy toward all things canine, she answered, "Well, why shouldn't I be sad? I'm here." Why? She had never thought dogs were smart on Earth, erroneously. So she thought perhaps they were dumb as rocks in the afterlife too. And she said, as a test, "I committed a traffic infraction with horrible consequences." Traffic? You played in traffic? Bad human, bad. She believed she could never explain traffic regulations to an animal that understood the world by means of smelling butts. She said anyway, "I was parking illegally in a handicapped spot when I was hit by a truck." "Did you have your head out the window?" Bad human, bad. Phoebe felt both deeper despair and supreme vindication. Dogs, she concluded, were in fact idiots, but they also seemed judgmental, and they might be prone to punishment. Out of nowhere, a ball appeared at the dog's feet. "We play here. I can play fetch with you. We can have fun." Then she understood. The dog was a demon. All those dogs were hellish demons, as she had always suspected. And her torment would be to play fetch for eternity. They say we make our own heaven or hell on earth, and it's true. We can even make hell out of heaven and suffer endless, needless torment merely because it meets our expectations. This is the difference between human beings and all dogs, most cats, and the occasional goldfish. By the way, the dog thought Phoebe was great, and it played blissfully for eternity.
So, while I'm going away, Gumbo Fiction Salon is not. And I will be coming back because no one wants to be in New Orleans in June, July, August. We won't be either. We will be coming back to the Midwest every summer. And I'll be making occasional visits back to the Midwest to see family. And so I'm going to try to have those line up for it with the occasional Gumbo Fiction Salon so that I can come back and visit. But it would only be here to come back to visit because of our last reader tonight. This is Philip Janowski. He is a contributor to the Chicago Review of Books, Windy City Reviews, and is the president of the Speculative Literature Foundation's Chicago branch. He is also a board member of the Chicago Writers Association and an associate board member of Story Studios Chicago. He has been awarded an honorable mention for the Writers of the Future contest. Huzzah. And he'll be taking over, as I've said, the monthly Gumbo Fiction Salon open mic and reading series. So please keep coming out to the show under his leadership and keep the fun alive. And please welcome Philip Janowski.
Gumbo Fiction Salon is much shorter than probably everyone here. The story is pretty simple. I started coming earlier this year, and I loved it. And then Tina announced she had to go, and I don't want it to end. So,
Yay.
That's what I So the following is an excerpt from my epic fantasy novel, The Prayer of the Dominoes. This story takes place in an alternate world, and different chapters focus on different protagonists. The protagonist of the following chapter is Penta, a hot-tempered young hare, something like an intelligent rabbit person. Some species names in this reading have been edited for easier context here. Penta was pleased to notice, once he made it into Anarcho City, that he was no longer regarded with any surprise. He was used to being stared at for his unique coloration. Here, there was an extensive range of types and colorations. Peoples from the Northwest countries and the South, where populations were more soupy than strict alpaca. Hares, armadillos, lizards, humans, hoodies, wisps, a few ravens, and then much less recognizable beings to Penta's eyes, all walked the streets. Night black lizards that crawled along on all fours, but still used their front legs like hands and arms. Creatures that looked like they were made of stone in the form of giant square heads, but moved and spoke. Snakes the size of people, but evidently intelligent, balancing boxes on the ends of their tails. A giant stag beetle walking on two legs. On and on. There are so many kinds of people in the world, Penta thought. The roads were strange as well. While various species walked along the sidewalks, the roads were taken up by what looked like uncovered buggies. They were the sort of thing Princess Alice occasionally rode around in, usually pulled by hares. Here, however, nothing pulled the buggies. They moved along, steered by drivers, rolling forward along the road. They must have been Kine devices. Penta had heard about these. Motorized buggies powered by ink. He looked around for several moments, then focused on a brown-furred hare moving along the sidewalk across the street. He had a suitcase in his left hand and wore glasses. Penta hopped over and landed in front of the other hare. "Hey, buddy, can you help me?" The brown hare moved right around Penta's side, continuing down the sidewalk. "Hey," Penta turned around. He was not used to other hares ignoring him. Just jumping out at a hare at Alfeca Castle was usually enough to get them talking. "Buddy," he placed a hand on the hare's shoulder. The hare swung around, a knife clutched in his right hand. Sunlight glinted off the blade and the hare's glasses. "Back off." He still gripped the suitcase in his left hand. "Whoa," Penta leapt back. The surprise smacked the heat out of him. "Hey, I just want to know where the Kine Corporation is." "Away," he spoke with an accent Penta was unused to. "Away, go away." "I'm asking a simple question." Now Penta was getting mad again. "Why can't you answer my simple question?" The other hare made a slight slashing motion with the blade. "Away." All right, go on your way then." Penta backed off. The other hare continued watching him, so Penta turned himself and went down another street. So the hares were more aggressive here, perhaps. Wandering into a little park, he spotted a motorized Kine buggy stopped on the side of the road by a fountain. A grass-green lizard was scooping handfuls of water out of the fountain and drinking. The lizard was tiny, half the size of Penta. "Hey, buddy," Penta felt strange talking to a lizard, but the place and circumstances were already strange. Might as well lean into it. He approached slowly from another side of the fountain. "Hello?" The lizard acknowledged him for a moment before slurping at another handful of water. "Yeah, okay." Penta pointed at the buggy. Can you tell me where you got one of these? The lizard stopped scooping water and stared at him with wide eyes. Penta tried again. Where did you get that? The lizard flicked its head to the left. Didn't steal it. I'm not asking if you stole it. Penta wondered why everyone made everything difficult. I asked where you got it. It's mine. The lizard tensed, tail wiggling slightly. I didn't steal it. Penta's fingers clenched. Fucking listen. I am trying to find Kiney Corporation. With a tremendous leap, the lizard flung himself a full 8 feet into the air and landed in the seat of his vehicle. With a quick movement, the vehicle puttered to life, and the little lizard drove away. This was the moment that Penta was thrown over the edge. Maybe it was the tension of being in the new city and seeing so many new things, as well as the encounter with the other hare. But Penta discovered he was much angrier than he thought he was. Get back here, Penta hollered and sprang after. The buggies were impressive technological advancements, but were not yet so fast, especially upon starting. Penta took 5 strides forward, made a jump, and landed in the seat beside the lizard. Hey! The lizard shrieked and threw itself into the air again, right out of the driver's seat. Penta looked up, watching in what felt like slow motion as the small lizard flipped backwards and away. Penta turned back to the front, just as the buggy crashed into a park tree. The vehicle could not have been going above 10 miles an hour, so the worst of it was a jolt that threw Penta forward. He slammed his face against the dashboard. Gah! He pulled his head back, nose freshly bleeding. Ugh. He got out of the car, reached for some grass, balled it up, and stuffed the clumps in his nostrils. When he looked back, the lizard was gone. There were some other beings in the small park, a hoodie playing with its child, and a big scarab beetle digging in the dirt. But no one seemed to pay attention to him at all. Just another day in Anarcho, huh? All right then. Penta moved over to the driver's seat. Screw it then. Might as well have some fun. He had some experience driving a vehicle like this in the Kiney factory back in Alpheka, a small motorized device used to pick up and move barrels of juice. This device was pretty similar. An ink pedal, a way to go in reverse, brakes. All right, he muttered to himself. He backed the buggy up. The tree he had hit was unharmed, though noticeably dented. The front of the buggy was slightly caved in, but otherwise it ran fine. What's the worst that could happen? Penta backed out into the road proper, and with a few careful turns of the wheel, centered and moved forward. The roads were made of some hard black stone. Penta wasn't familiar with it. It was this flattened, hard surface that allowed the buggies to run along without trouble. The vehicle's wheels probably couldn't handle the bumpy earth, sandy beaches, and wild routes outside the city. Soon, Penta was driving along down the road, moving ahead with no idea where. The wind blew his ears back. The road ahead was clear of other buggies, and Penta was getting used to the drive. Intrigued by the surrounding sights, Penta found himself the most pleasantly relaxed he had been since he'd entered the city. A chorus of honking sounds erupted from behind. Penta slowed and looked back. 3 other buggies were right behind him. One was driven by a silver-haired human woman, one by a fat armadillo, and one somehow by a copperhead snake. The honks were coming from the buggies. Hurry the fuck up, the armadillo howled. Penta wanted to turn around and hurl his own response, but he was also wary of crashing the buggy again. His enjoyment was enough to motivate him to not lose control. He focused on the road ahead and pressed down harder on the gas pedal. Oh, Jesu Krish. Judging by the accent, it was probably the human woman groaning. Come on, buddy, we don't have all day. The stupid buggy must be broken, Penta thought. He pressed down harder on the ink pedal. It's not my fault. Hurry up. Actually, the buggy was getting slower and slower. Now, it was coming entirely to a stop. Then he realized the ink. An ink meter near to the steering wheel measured how much of the energizing fluid the vehicle still had in its tank, and the meter was down to 0. The buggy puttered to a stop in the middle of the road. Idiot, the human woman scowled. Her buggy drove around and past his left. Then the armadillo. Last came the snake driver. A tail flicked, and a banana peel came flying out and landed in Penta's lap. The peel was dripping wet. Penta sprang up. You mother! Excuse me. Penta's buggy shook. Penta stopped and turned. A fourth vehicle had stopped beside Penta, this on his right. This one differed from the buggies. It had a full metal carapace which covered its top. It was painted yellow, with black and white checker squares along the side. The engine thrummed with greater energy. A panel of glass had rolled down, and a human wearing a green flat cap leaned out. His mitt of a hand rested on the edge of Penta's buggy. The man's face was well-toned with a trimmed mustache. He wore a blue outfit. Sir, he said with good humor, are you aware that this buggy is stolen? What? Huh? Penta stood on the seat, still monitoring the snake-driven buggy running off into the distance. What? He was almost frothing at the mouth. Sir, you were driving a stolen vehicle. The human grinned, showing a full set of white teeth. I'll need you to come with me. Thank you.
One last prize to give away. You have to come.
You took a good one. Well,
Right, we have 787-386.
That's me! Hey, what a nice bag!
It's what's inside that counts.
Okay.
Oh, the bag's pretty.
Another big hand for all our amazing leaders and performers tonight. I was going to say this is just a taste of what you can get at Gumbo Fiction Salon, but this was actually a multi-course meal tonight. And I'm so glad you were all here to be a part of it, and I want to thank you for making the Chicago genre community as live and thriving and welcoming and friendly as you all have. You guys have done that, and I thank you very much for letting me be a part of it. Thank you. So you don't have to leave right away. I know a bunch of you are going, I must leave. But I'm gonna go in the other room, and anyone who would still like to do pictures, let's do some pictures. And thank you all again. Good night. Be safe.